Tucked in amongst the traffic, congestion, and construction of a rapidly growing Franklin, Tennessee, sits one of the city's enduring treasures. A tiny historic building houses a small but dedicated volunteer group with a proud tradition of providing top-notch theatrical entertainment to the community. The group, now known for 50 years as Pull Tight Players. In 1968, a 15-year-old Battleground Academy high school student named Vance Orms had a vision for bringing live theater to the sleepy little town of Franklin, Tennessee. With Vance's hard work, his parents, Bill and Agnes Orms, and a handful of teen and adult volunteers, a little theater with an odd name was established.
Went to my parents and talked to them. I was 15 at the time, I think. And they said, oh, interesting. And I was the type of kid who had adult friends, so a lot of my parents' friends were my friends. So I rounded up a whole group of them. We went over to Lola Morgan's house and sat around the kitchen and brainstormed ideas. And the first thing that came up was, is it something other people in the community would respond to, the idea of starting a theater group. So we decided to have an open house, advertise that, and just see what the response from the community would be like. And it would turn out to be good.
Pull Tight got its curious name from a road in Williamson County with a steep incline. When farmers pulled their crops behind their mules, they had to pull tight on the reins in order to make the difficult climb. The group found this a fitting metaphor for the work they knew lay ahead for this fledgling little theater.
My dad swears that when his grandfather told him when cars came along, the only gear they could go up the hill in was reverse because it was the strongest gear. So people would back up the hill, turn around, and go down. So, and his feeling was that if the community theater like this was going to survive 50 years, for example, they would have to pull tight. Everybody would have to come together and work as a group. And I think it's proved to be prophetic.
I came down here and saw the article in the newspaper that they were going to try to start one. I said, I'm going to go and check that out and see what's what. And I got a part in the first show, a small one, but that's okay. And helped, get it started and on its feet.
I had 4 children on the farm, and I saw a notice in the Review-Appeal paper, the weekly newspaper, that there was a group wanting to organize a theater. And so meeting at the second floor of the Williamson County Bank. And I said, can I please go and do that? And my husband said, sure.
The first production at the new theater was Thornton Wilder's Our Town, performed at Franklin High School. Vance Orms played the part of George Gibbs, and the late David Cobb, a Nashville radio and TV personality, played the narrator. The show was directed by Billy Aiken.
Well, you should be president. Has this been your idea? And I said, no. Even then, I was 15, 16. I knew as a teen, the board needed to have an adult president just to present itself to the community. And somebody knew David Cobb, who was a local radio personality, and prevailed upon David to come in and take over, to take the job as the president of the board.
From the start, Pull Tight was energized by its enthusiastic and multi-talented volunteers, taking on all of the roles necessary both to put on the plays and to run the organization behind the scenes. In the early days, the group performed in various locations, including Franklin High School, Franklin Junior High School, the jailhouse on Bridge Street known as the Old Jail, a Holiday Inn, Harpeth National Bank, Harpeth Academy, St. Paul's Episcopal Church, the Spring Street Community Room, Page High School, and an outdoor space at Carter's Court.
They did the first show that I was involved in the community room of the First Tennessee Bank, where I did lights sitting behind the whole set. I couldn't see anything, so I had to do it by sound cues only on a homemade box that Doug Redmond built.
My guidance counselor was in Harvey, and he was a very good friend of mine besides being a guidance counselor, and he was performing, so I wanted to see it. It was supposed to be at Carter's Court outside, but it rained that night, so they pulled it in a teeny tiny store in there, and I saw it in there and I was amazed.
At that point, early in Pull Type, we were, vagabonds. We were moving around. But the second play we did was in the gymnasium auditorium of what was the junior high school, Franklin Junior High School, and this posed some of its own problems because we had to create a portable lighting system. But the thing about a community theater, which I really appreciate, is the community does get behind it. And you could go back then, you could go to one of the electrical stores and say, I'm doing a play, and I need to light it. And they would bring their guys in and scratch their heads and make sketches and figure out and go, where can you plug this in? Where can this sit? Where can it do? And you just make it happen.
In 1979, 2 milestones were achieved. The group settled into a home base at 405 Main Street, and also gathered its courage and resources to present its first musical, Lil Abner.
I directed the very first musical Pull Tight ever did, and that was Little Abner. And a lot of people who are still involved in Pull Tight were in that show, and I have got to go on record saying Gene Drone every night brought down the house.
Pull Tight soon established itself as an active member of the Franklin community, participating in such events as the annual parade, Western Days on the Square, and later the annual Dickens of a Christmas celebration.
Winter came along. I thought, wait a minute, Dickens of a Christmas is coming up. I'm a Dickens character. I ought to be on the street. So I just borrowed my costume back from Peggy and appeared on Main Street, where in those days you could have fired a cannon and not hit anybody, and have been doing that for the last 26 years.
In an era when printed newspapers were the lively hub of a town's communication, Pull Tight enjoyed extensive coverage and was fully embraced by the local community.
Our lights were made out of stovepipes, tin cans. We had our control board for the lights was about this square. And it was we thought we were doing great, but looking back on it, it's pretty pitiful, but it had to start that way. So seeing it back then and seeing it today is really like going from the horse and buggy days into the spaceship. Funniest thing was the old jail leaked, and we had metal folding chairs that were set out. We were probably looking for an audience of maybe 30. So we had the chairs set out, and as it would leak, it would come through the roof and it would hit these vacant chairs. And so there'd be a blank. So people would get to move the chairs. You had to have a show that you had to have a lot of women, because there were like 2 or 3 men in Franklin that would come and try out. And so you wanted a huge cast, because you knew that they'd bring their mother and their father and their grandparents and all that. And so our shows were already really heavy with women and just a scattered man or two around.
And if you can cast a kid, you're going to pack them in.
Yeah, all you got to do is cast a kid and you're in business.
1985 was a watershed year for the company, as the group moved to a new home at 112 2nd Avenue South, into an historic building that had been built as a church and subsequently housed a grocery store, a post office, a restaurant, and an antique shop.
We were moving into this building, had 3 weeks to renovate that place and make it into a theater. That's the epitome of Pull Tight, in my opinion. What you just heard is that, everybody truly pulled tight at that moment to make that place into a theater as best we knew it.
As a ceremony, we had a march from the old theater on Main Street to the new theater on 2nd Avenue.
When we moved to the facility we have now at 2nd Avenue, my boss asked me, he came to one of the shows and says, who did all this? Who did you get to hire to do all this? And I said, well, it was me and a few other guys. He looked at me and goes, you did not hire this done? I said, no, we don't hire anything done that we can do ourselves. And he was pretty amazed that the community pulled together and made it happen.
It was just such a wonderful feeling of having home, a home, and yes, a home for the theater.
The group commemorated the move with a candlelit march in costume from the Main Street location to the new building. In 1986, Peggy Gentry, long a key member of the organization, along with her parents, John and Margaret Henderson, introduced to Poltite an individual who would become Poltite's only lifetime board member to date and be instrumental in maintaining both the organizational and financial health of the organization and the physical space. Ian McPherson's first contribution to the theater was a benefit show he created and performed while here as a visitor from Dundee, Scotland. Ian moved to Franklin, and he and Peggy were married in 1987, thus solidifying one of Poltite's beloved families, which would come to include TJ and Laurel Aiello, who married later that same year, and their future sons, Sean and Scott Aiello. Indeed, the topic of family is one that is a recurring theme when talking to Poltite members.
Mom and Ian met at Poltite, TJ and I met at Poltite. Scott and his wife, my youngest son Scott and his wife met at Poltite, and so did my oldest son and his wife, Sean and Savannah, both met at Poltite. So for us, it has been, our whole family.
My entire family has been involved. Now my grandchildren are doing it, and even my dog has been on stage. So it's pretty family oriented, and that's what I like about it the most is everyone, you get a feel of family because so many families are doing it, and then you become family with the people that are involved in the shows.
Poltite is one of my other families, full of great people. And once you're in, you're in.
Secret to Poltite is it's always had families who pull together, grandparents, parents, children, generational.
The kids were auditioning and I was sitting waiting for them to be done, and Ian McPherson, who I knew from church, encouraged me to audition. He says, well, what do you need to go audition? I said, no, I can't do this. And he said, oh, sure you can. You sing, it's just like singing in the choir at church. Of course you can. And he said, so I said, well, Ian, that's all well good. I appreciate you saying, but I'm too busy. I don't have time with my work. And he said, well, if Wade and Caroline get in the show, are you going to bring them to rehearsal? And I said, yeah, sure, of course I am. And he said, are you going to pick them up when rehearsals are over? And I said, well, yeah, sure, of course. And he says, I'm just talking about the time in between.
Over the years, Poltite members have bonded and celebrated with show cast parties and annual awards banquets. Poltite has promoted youth opportunities in its main stage shows as well as through its Junior and Teen Youth Actors Guild programs, and has awarded scholarships to eligible high school seniors.
My foster daughter was a very shy person, and the theater really helped her find who she was, and she got cast in a lead, actually, in Snoopy, in a Youth Guild show as Lucy, and then the three of us were in Annie together, which was a lot of fun to have a little family activity. So that was a great, one of the greatest things I think that happened was that it helped her to blossom as a person and find her niche in life.
I think that Poltite has been one of the driving forces as it has expanded behind the blossoming of arts in Franklin that has occurred in the last few years. And that's important to me. I think children need art.
Members have participated in special events and fundraisers. A particular distinction for Poltite has been bringing to life over several years an original historical drama written by Bob Holliday, Incident at Fort Granger, which has been performed in various locations, including Carnton Plantation and Fort Granger itself, and was even commissioned as a special performance at Tudor Place in Georgetown, outside of Washington, D.C., in 2001.
We were actually requested to come to Washington, D.C. and perform that play at Georgetown, at the home of Tudor Place, which was where one of the two soldiers was living prior to coming to Franklin during the Civil War.
If you look at any of the programs, it has a picture of the two soldiers. And I get the chills right now because we were walking through their home, and in their bedroom was the original picture of those two soldiers. So that was very memorable. It continued on until 2013 when we did the 150th reenactment up at the fort, and I could not have asked for a better experience with that.
Poltite has consistently excelled among local community theaters in terms of its quality of productions, organizational structure, and financial solvency. It continues to do so with an administrative staff and show production teams made up entirely of volunteers. Those who come to Poltite arrive with many talents, and more often than not will alternate wearing various hats, including actor, director, stage manager, set builder, costumer, props person, graphic designer, board member, committee head, or many others.
Our home looks like a warehouse now because we have stored all the props. Theaters don't have a place to put them, and we can't afford to pay to store them, so they're all at our house. So.
Do you want a whip, a hangman's noose, whatever? We've got it.
We've got it. We've got it all.
I was involved with replacing the floor, the stage floor, 2 different times. And I guess the reason that I enjoyed that part as well is because, again, it was a team effort. Again, some of the people that you don't normally see, the camaraderie and the bitsing and the give and take was just a joy.
They have also had to be adept over the years at keeping up with changing times, changing technologies, and a changing Franklin, evolving as the years have passed.
We have needed to move to being able to take donations online and for people to be able to do so much more. And as we just sold shows and sold shows and sold shows, we needed to be able to add holdovers and make other arrangements. And of course now we can do that. And I worked that job for 15 years, and then Johnny Peppers is our new box office manager, took over a year ago, and has been amazing and taken us even further into the future than I ever dreamed we would be.
We've seen a lot of growth over the last 10 years. Some people might call it change, but when it's positive change, we call it growth. We have seen an amazing number of patrons coming to our theater that had never been there before. We see shows put up that are of professional quality. We have seen our volunteer base explode in the last 10 years. And specifically, over the last 2 years, we've seen about a 40% increase in our season ticket base.
A big part of our theater is our patrons. And even people that have never worked on a show or held a paintbrush or ever sung a note are a huge part of our success. We have couples that have been coming together for 30 years to Poltite. We have a group of ladies that do a Bible study together. They call themselves the Glory Girls, and they have been coming together. They've had season tickets for over a decade together.
You get to work with old friends, new friends, and it's something that really fills your heart at times when you need it.
Community theater holds my heart because it's where everybody gets to have a chance to discover who they are, what they might want to do.
And the relationships you form, some of which you hold on to for years and years and years. That's part of the joy, that's part of the blessing.
Hopefully we can brighten people's lives
we can, again, like I say, take them out of their reality just for a few moments. And I think it just enriches lives, people's lives so much.
Live theater is not something that one or two people can accomplish by themselves. It takes, pardon the phrase, a family, and that's probably where the title of Pull Tight Theater being a family theater comes from, or at least one of them. And I personally am grateful for that family.
We went to California for 1 year in around 2000. And when we got there, my children were in 8th grade and 2nd grade, I think. And my eldest, Curtis, said, "Mom, there's nothing like Pull Tight here." And we were near San Francisco and a lot of bigger cities. And he said, "I don't think you're going to find anything like Pull Tight. Mom, Pull Tight is really special." And it just amazed me that being away from it, he understood what an incredible jewel this is. And it's right in our backyard.
Churchill said, "If we don't value the arts, then what the hell are we fighting for?" And it's this, what it brings to the community, not just what us as actors get out of it, but when you reach out there and touch somebody, you tell a story. I mean, life's all about telling stories. And live theater is the greatest venue to tell a story.
I always tell my cast that that's what we're doing. We want to make these people happy. You don't know what kind of day they've had. They've had a bad day. They come in, you make them laugh, and for a minute they don't owe a mortgage. Their car hasn't been wrecked. They just had a good time, and that's what we're here for, is to see that everybody has a good time and enjoy themselves.
For community theater people, it's a passion, because you're not getting paid, for the long hours. There's sometimes not a whole lot of appreciation for what's being done, but yet the level of creativity that lives inside artisans that perform in community theater, both in front of the audience and those who are behind the stage too, is just phenomenal.
It's brought me some of the most amazing friends that I could ever ask for in my life.
When you look at what all you get out of it, the value that you pass on to the next generation is extremely important.
Theater sometimes brings out the very best in people, and Pull Tight especially. They have a good name, Pull Tight. When the going got rough, what did we do? We pulled tight together.
Pull Tight is just part of the life of Franklin, as far as I'm concerned.
The growth of the Pull Tight and the talent and just went along with the growth of Williams County and Franklin.
I was involved in the production of Brigadoon when 9/11 happened. And that was on a Tuesday. We were supposed to, of course, have a Thursday night performance through the weekend. And Ian McPherson was also directing that. And it was just totally up in the air. Were we going to go on stage? Were we not? What was the right thing to do? I really wasn't sure. I went both ways on that. Ian decided to proceed. I will never forget when we all first gathered together on stage before that first performance on Thursday. It was just, a sob fest, because everybody was just so upset and so really frightened of what did this all mean and what's going to happen next. Ian had a great idea. He suggested that before we start each performance from then on, that we would bring the flag out and that we would all sing the national anthem. And he would come out personally and make a few remarks. He did. Thursday night, we were like, is anybody going to show up? The theater was full. And it was just probably one of the most meaningful nights of theater for me, because it truly gave all of us, the actors, the crew, the cast, the audience, just a few moments to escape.
Vance himself went on to earn an undergraduate degree from the University of Denver and a master's in theater from Penn State, before spending many fruitful years as an actor, director, and administrator in professional theater. From its humble beginnings to the thriving community theater it is today, this little group continues to pull tight in presenting some of the best entertainment in Middle Tennessee. Once the only theatrical option in Williamson County, Pulltight now shares the space with several others, including a professional company, but continues to hold its own in providing quality theater at an affordable cost in a cozy space with easy parking. In an age where patrons are accustomed to seeing close-up action and every emotion at the movies and on TV, tablet and phone, our small space has turned out to be an advantage in allowing audience members to feel intimately involved and a part of the action. We thank our many volunteers, sponsors, and patrons over the years for their support, without which none of this would have been possible. Happy 50th birthday to Franklin's Pull Tight Players Theater.